The mistress was sitting in my chair when I walked into the dining room. My husband looked at me and smiled. She belongs here now. Nobody at the table seemed surprised. His mother nodded. You should get used to it. I looked at the woman wearing my husband's hand on her waist. Then I looked at my chair. The same chair my grandmother had insisted I sit in every Christmas, every birthday, every family dinner since I was 19. I didn't argue. I simply asked, when did this become her seat? My husband, Daniel, shrugged. Don't start, Claire. The woman smiled. I think we both know things have changed. Her name was Vanessa. I knew exactly who she was. Daniel's secretary. The woman whose name had started appearing on his phone at midnight. The woman he claimed was just good at her job. Apparently, she was good at something else too. His mother poured Vanessa more wine. Then she looked at me. You've been difficult lately, Claire. Maybe this is what happens when a wife stops appreciating what she has. I stared at her. My husband didn't defend me. That hurt more than Vanessa sitting in my chair. I had spent 7 years defending Daniel when his business nearly collapsed. I had sold my jewelry to keep his company alive. I had used my savings to cover payroll. I had stood beside him when his own family called him a failure. And tonight, he had brought his mistress into our family home and expected me to accept it. I slowly pulled out the chair across from them. Before I could sit, Grandma slammed her hand against the table. Get up. Everyone froze. Vanessa immediately stood. Grandma pointed at the chair. That seat belongs to Claire. Daniel frowned. Grandma, please. No. Her voice was sharp enough to silence the room. She looked at me. Then she looked at Daniel. You really thought I wouldn't know? Daniel's face changed. I noticed it. So did everyone else. Grandma reached into her purse and removed a small envelope. She placed it in front of me. This belonged to your grandfather. I stared at the handwriting. He had been dead for 11 years. Grandma whispered. He told me to give you this the moment Daniel brought another woman into your seat. I opened my mouth. She stopped me. Read it before you decide whether you want a divorce. I looked at Daniel. For the first time that evening, he looked afraid. I unfolded the letter. The first line made my stomach drop. Claire, if you're reading this, Daniel has finally made the mistake I warned you about. I looked at my husband. He was staring at the paper like he'd seen a ghost. Where did you get that? He asked. Grandma didn't answer him. I kept reading. My grandfather had written the letter 11 years earlier, shortly before he died. He explained that he had never trusted Daniel, not because of his personality, because of something he had discovered while reviewing the family company's accounts. Daniel had been moving money through a small consulting firm owned by someone named Robert Hale. I didn't recognize the name. Then I reached the next paragraph. Robert Hale is Vanessa's father. I looked up. Vanessa had gone completely pale. Daniel stood. That's enough. Grandma snapped. Sit down. He actually obeyed. I couldn't stop reading. Grandpa had discovered that Robert had tried to buy controlling shares of the company through hidden investors. When Grandpa blocked him, Robert disappeared. But before he died, Grandpa created a trust. The trust protected the company's controlling shares. And there was one condition. The shares would remain under my control as long as I stayed married to Daniel. I stayed at the page. What does my marriage have to do with the company? Grandma answered. Everything. Daniel finally spoke. Your grandfather was paranoid. Grandma laughed. He was prepared. She looked at me. Daniel married you knowing about the trust. My heart started pounding. No. Daniel shook his head. Claire, don't listen to her. But Grandma wasn't finished. He didn't marry you for the reason you thought. I looked at Daniel. 7 years suddenly felt different. The way he had insisted on a quick wedding. The way he had pushed me to sign business documents. The way he always wanted access to my financial records. I had thought those things were normal. Now they felt like pieces of a puzzle. Vanessa suddenly stood. Daniel, we need to leave. Grandma smiled. No, sweetheart. She pointed toward the door. You're staying. Then she looked at me. Because your husband didn't bring Vanessa here tonight to replace you. She paused. He brought her here because he thought you were about to lose everything. My blood ran cold. I looked at Daniel. He couldn't meet my eyes. I couldn't breathe. For 7 years, I had believed Daniel married me because he loved me. Now Grandma was telling me he had married me because of my grandfather's trust. I looked at Daniel. Is that true? He didn't answer. That silence was enough. Vanessa suddenly said, You don't understand what happened. I turned toward her. Then explain it. She looked at Daniel. He shook his head. Don't. Grandma leaned back. Let her. Vanessa swallowed. My father lost everything because of your grandfather. I frowned. What does that have to do with me? Everything. She told me Robert had spent years trying to regain control of the company. When that failed, he found another way. Daniel, my husband had been working for Robert long before he met me. At first, Daniel claimed he only wanted revenge. Then he met me and realized marrying me could give him access to the trust. I felt sick, so every year we spent together. Daniel finally spoke. It wasn't all fake. I laughed. The sound didn't even feel like mine. Which part was real? He looked down. I loved you. Grandma slammed her hand on the table again. Don't insult her. Daniel's jaw tightened. Grandma continued. Your grandfather knew exactly what he was doing. That's why he added another condition to the trust. I looked at her. What condition? She smiled. If Daniel ever attempted to transfer company assets without Clay's approval, control would automatically return to the family. Daniel suddenly stood. You can't prove anything. Grandma nodded. Actually, I can. She pulled another folder from her purse. Daniel's face changed immediately. Inside were copies of company transfers. Dozens of them. Payments made to Robert's consulting firm. Payments made without my knowledge. I looked at the dates. Some were from last month. One was from yesterday. My husband had been moving company money while sitting beside me at dinner. I looked at Vanessa. You knew. She started crying. I didn't know everything. Grandma's expression hardened. You knew enough. Then she looked at me. There is one final transfer. She placed a single document in front of me. I read the amount. My hands went cold. Daniel had transferred $4.8 million, and the recipient wasn't Robert. It was Vanessa. I slowly looked up. Daniel whispered, Claire, please don't sign anything. I hadn't realized I was holding a pen. I looked at the pen in my hand. Daniel was staring at it. Don't sign anything, he said. I put the pen down. Why? He swallowed. Because you don't know what it means. Grandma laughed. She knows exactly what it means. I looked at the document again. The $4.8 million transfer had been made through a company I had never heard of, but the account was connected to Vanessa. I turned toward her. Why did Daniel send you $4.8 million? She started crying. I didn't ask for it. Daniel immediately said, That's a lie. Everyone looked at him. He froze. I realized he had just admitted he knew about the transfer. Grandma leaned toward me. Ask him where the money came from. I did. Where did the $4.8 million come from? Daniel didn't answer. I asked again. Was it from the company? He looked at his mother. Margaret finally spoke. Claire, this is complicated. No. I shook my head. It isn't. I stood. You stole from the company. Daniel's voice became desperate. I was protecting us. Us? Yes. He stepped closer. If Robert takes control, he'll destroy everything. I stared at him. So you gave him millions. I didn't give it to Robert. No. I looked at Vanessa. You gave it to her. Vanessa covered her face. Grandma opened another folder. Inside was a photograph. It showed Vanessa standing beside Robert. But Robert wasn't old and angry like I imagined. He was smiling. and beside him stood someone else. My father. I stopped breathing. What is my father doing with him? Grandma looked at me. That is the question I've been waiting for you to ask. I felt the room shift beneath me. My father had always warned me never to trust Robert. He had always told me Daniel was a good man, and now I was staring at proof that both men knew each other. Grandma slid another photograph toward me. This one was older. My father, Robert, Daniel, all three standing together outside my grandfather's company. The date was printed underneath. 2 years before I met Daniel. I looked at Grandma. You knew? She nodded. I knew your father had made a deal with Robert. My heart sank. What deal? Grandma's eyes moved toward Daniel. The deal that put you in danger. Grandma's words stayed with me. The deal that put you in danger. I looked at my father in the photograph. He had spent my entire childhood telling me that family came first. Now I wondered what family meant to him. Grandma, I said, tell me everything. She looked at Daniel. You should tell her. Daniel shook his head. I can't. Then I will. She explained that years ago, my father had secretly borrowed money from Robert to keep his own business alive. When he couldn't repay it, Robert demanded something else. Access to my grandfather's company. My father agreed. But there was a problem. My grandfather discovered the deal. He cut my father out completely and moved the controlling shares into the trust. That's when Robert changed his plan. He needed someone close to me. Someone I would trust. Daniel, I stayed at my husband. You knew my father before you met me. He nodded. How long? Almost 2 years. I felt something break inside me. So our first date wasn't a coincidence. No. And the proposal? He looked away. No. I laughed quietly. 7 years of memories suddenly felt like evidence. Grandma continued. Your father thought Daniel would eventually convince you to transfer control of the trust. I looked at Daniel, but I never did. No, Grandma said, because your grandfather added another protection. What? The trust couldn't be transferred while you were married. I looked at Daniel. He finally understood what I was thinking. You wanted me to divorce you. He nodded slowly. I needed access to the company. And Vanessa? Daniel's eyes moved toward her. She was supposed to make me look unfaithful. I stayed at him. So the affair was planned. Yes. My stomach turned. He had brought Vanessa into my home, placed her in my chair, humiliated me in front of his family. He wanted me angry enough to leave. Grandma reached for my hand. But Daniel made one mistake. I looked at her. What? She smiled. He forgot your grandfather knew exactly what kind of man he was. She opened the final folder. Inside was a legal document dated 6 months before my wedding. My grandfather had anticipated Daniel's betrayal, and he had written one final condition. I read it. Then I looked at Grandma. Grandpa knew this would happen. She nodded. He didn't just protect your company, Claire. She looked at Daniel. He prepared a way to take it all back. Grandma pushed the document toward me. I read the first sentence twice. If my granddaughter is ever publicly humiliated by her husband, the trust shall immediately transfer controlling authority to her. I looked at Daniel. He had gone completely silent. You knew about this? He shook his head. No. Grandma smiled. That is why you're afraid. Daniel reached for the document. I pulled it away. Don't. He stopped. For the first time since I had met him, Daniel looked powerless. Grandma continued. The trust has already been activated. I stared at her. When? The moment he brought Vanessa into this house and publicly declared her your replacement. Daniel's mother suddenly stood. You can't do that. Grandma looked at her. I already did. Margaret's face changed. What does that mean? It means Daniel no longer controls the company. Daniel's phone began ringing. He looked at the screen, then answered. Hello. His expression changed within seconds. What? He stood. No, that's impossible. He listened, then hung up. I watched him. What happened? He looked at me. The bank froze the corporate accounts. Grandma nodded, and the board received copies of the trust documents. Daniel's voice became angry. You planned this. Grandma didn't deny it. I prepared for it. He looked at me. Claire, you can't let her do this. I almost laughed. She isn't doing anything. I pointed toward the documents. My grandfather did. Daniel walked toward me. I can explain everything. You already did. No, you don't understand. He lowered his voice. I never wanted you hurt. I stared at him. You brought your mistress into my home. I needed you to leave. Why? He hesitated, then finally said, because if you stayed married to me, I could never access the trust. I felt strangely calm. So that's what our marriage was. Daniel looked down. Grandma stood. No. She looked at me. That is what he thought your marriage was. Then she placed one final envelope in my hands. This came from your grandfather's attorney. I opened it. Inside was a single sentence. If Daniel ever admits the real reason he married you, give her the second key. I looked at Grandma. What second key? She smiled. Then she reached into her purse and placed a small brass key in my palm. I stared at the brass key in my palm. What does this open? Grandma didn't answer immediately. She stood and walked toward the old wooden cabinet in the corner of the dining room. I had seen it my entire life. My grandfather used to keep his whiskey there. Grandma unlocked the cabinet. Behind the bottles was a small metal box. She inserted the brass key. The lock clicked. Daniel suddenly stepped forward. Grandma, don't. She opened the box. Inside was a stack of documents, a flash drive, and a photograph. I picked up the photograph first. It showed Daniel and Vanessa together, but the date was from 8 years ago, 1 year before Daniel and I met. I looked at him. You knew her before me. He closed his eyes. Vanessa started crying. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I turned toward her. What wasn't? She looked at Daniel. Our plan. The room went silent. Daniel whispered, Vanessa. No, I said. Let her talk. Vanessa finally broke. She admitted they had known each other for years. Daniel had originally approached me because of the trust. Vanessa was supposed to stay away until he gained control of the company. But Daniel started delaying the plan. Because he actually fell in love with me. Vanessa became furious. She wanted her father's money. She wanted Daniel. And she wanted revenge against my family. So she convinced Daniel to transfer the $4.8 million. Not to herself. To an account controlled by Robert. I looked at Daniel. You lied to me about the money. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to protect yourself. He didn't respond. I picked up the flash drive. What is this? Grandma smiled. The reason your grandfather was always one step ahead. I plugged it into her laptop. A video appeared. My grandfather was sitting behind his desk. He looked directly into the camera. Claire, if you're watching this, Daniel has betrayed you. My eyes filled with tears. He continued, but I need you to understand something. He leaned closer. Daniel is not the person you should fear most. I looked at Grandma. Then the video continued. The person who helped him enter our family is someone you trust completely. My blood ran cold. Grandpa said the name, and I couldn't breathe. It was my father. I couldn't speak. My father. Grandma nodded. He was the one who introduced Daniel to Robert. I looked at the video again. My grandfather continued. Your father believed he could control the situation. He was wrong. The video showed documents proving my father had secretly borrowed millions from Robert and promised him access to the company. But there was something else. A recording. My father's voice. Once Claire divorces Daniel, the trust will collapse. Then Robert gets control. I felt sick. My father hadn't been protecting me. He had been waiting for me to fail. I looked at Daniel. Did you know? He nodded. I found out after we're married. And you stayed. I was trapped. I laughed bitterly. You were trapped. I pointed toward Vanessa. You had a mistress sitting in my chair. Daniel lowered his eyes. I made terrible choices. No. I shook my head. You made 7 years of choices. Grandma closed the laptop. That's enough. She handed me the trust documents. The company is yours now. Daniel stared at me. What are you going to do? I looked at him. For the first time. I smiled. I'm going to stop saving people who keep trying to destroy me. Within weeks, the investigation exposed everything. My father had secretly worked with Robert for years. Daniel had been recruited to marry me. Vanessa had helped manipulate the affair. The $4.8 million transfer was recovered. My father's business collapsed. Robert was charged. Daniel lost his position and faced criminal charges for the financial transfers. And Vanessa, she lost the man she thought she was stealing. But I didn't celebrate their downfall. I simply went back to the dining room one evening. The chair was still there. The same chair Grandma had protected for me. I sat down. She smiled. You finally understand why it mattered. I touched the wooden armrest. It wasn't about the chair. No, she said. It was about knowing your place in your own life. I looked around the empty table. 7 years earlier, I had thought marriage meant standing beside someone no matter what. Now I understood. Sometimes loyalty means knowing when to stand up and walk away. Daniel thought bringing Vanessa into my seat would make me feel replaced. Instead, he gave me the one thing he never intended to give me, the truth. And once I had the truth, he couldn't take anything else from me.